Your Highness, Sheikh محمد bin Hamad الشرقي, Crown Prince of Fujiyama, honorable attendees of excellencies and distinguished guests, may the peace of Allah be upon you. Assalamu alaikum. First of all, we'd like to welcome all of you right here to the fourth session of the Muhammad bin Hamad al-Sharqi Mejlis for this year 2024, which comes under the title of Charity, Cultural Society, and Sustainable Impact. This Mejlis, distinguished guests, highlights a profound human narrative, which is altruism, where assistance is given without expecting any reciprocity. And this humanitarian aid transcends both the religious, national, racial boundaries, fostering, therefore, inclusivity, a very important word, regardless, of course, of gender, color, or appearance. It also enriches lives, therefore, fostering compassion and love as cornerstone of human interaction, emanating, of course, organically from the depths of human spirit. Now, let's improvise here and not look at this and start by asking a question, because at the end of this Mejlis, distinguished guests, we'll look forward for some interaction. Now, raise your hand if you have a loved one or two, or maybe five. Does anybody of us here have a loved one? It could be a father, it could be a mother, it could be your wife, it could be your husband, your children. If you have a loved one, raise your hand. Wonderful. Now, think of it in this way. Let's imagine at a certain time, one of our loved ones required an exceptional medical condition. It's a cure. The cure is available. But there is an obstacle. That obstacle is money. The thought of trying to solve this issue could be a predicament, could be an issue. Do you agree? We've got to try to find a way to give this loved one the best medical attention they could get and eliminate that obstacle. Now, imagine another scenario. Imagine if a loved one required an exceptional medical assistance, but the cure was not available. Now, if you compare this to that, money does not sound like much of a problem. Money is always attainable, but a cure is a challenge. And why are we mentioning this analogy? Because this is what tonight's Mejlis is all about. Distinguished guests, today we'll be gathering to hear the inspiring story of our esteemed guest. He is one of the most respected and influential ophthalmologists in the world, known as, listen to this one, the messenger of sight. Now, you can have a vision, but a sight is something else. And he was known by that by the people of Nepal. He was the recipient of the Isa Award for Service to Humanity in its 5th edition for the cycle of 2021-2022 in the Kingdom of Bahrain. Our good doctor is also renowned globally for innovating a simple yet new method to treat cataracts, also providing free treatment to over 180,000 blind patients. Over the past 30 years, he has significantly reduced the treatable blindness rate by nearly half in Nepal, a very outstanding result. And he has trained over 650 doctors worldwide, sharing his expertise. The collective successful surgeries performed by these doctors that he trained have exceeded 35 million operations worldwide. And now, without further introductions, let's meet someone who found a cure to something and had one of two options. Either take advantage of this achievement in cure for the benefit of his own pocket and his own personal life, and instead made a choice to make a benefit to humanity as a whole. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a tale of a boy hailing from a humble family in a remote village, rising to become one of the world's most esteemed and impactful personalities yet. Graciously, we ask him to share his story with all of us. Can you please give a round of applause to the very esteemed Dr. Sanduk Ruit?
Royal Highness, the Crown Prince, distinguished guests, Assalamu alaikum. Today, I'm going to make it very simple and talk to you a little bit about how we started early in our career, in my career actually, and then what went on during the process of the development and the strategy and management process, and how we have come to this place and what we plan to do in the future. And I really like to thank His Royal Highness, the Crown Prince, for having me here tonight and for the wonderful hospitality, Your Highness. Let me begin. This is a story of my passion for giving sight to people who are otherwise sightless. And I have struggled over the period of time to do it, and hopefully refining it and making it possible for many people. And if you look at blindness, it's not only blinding one person, especially in our part of the world where family rhythm is so important. It really affects the person, the society, and the country itself. And it normally shortens the life expectancy, income, employment, and authority, and increases the burden of the individual and the society. And there are believed to be close to 40 million people at present in the world who are blind. When I say blind, it's almost like closing your eyes. It's not like visual impaired, but it's totally blind. And of that, nearly 13 million are because of cataract. And in addition to that, another 65 million people are visually impaired with cataract. So there are 78 million people in the world who can actually be cured now and now with such a short and simple procedure. And unfortunately, close to 90% of these live in low and middle income countries. And cataract is still the leading cause of blindness in the world. And to take you back in 1990s, the treatment for cataract was removing the lens and giving them thick cork bottle glasses. That's where I started struggling in my early career as an ophthalmologist, young ophthalmologist, how I can provide modern cataract surgery to these people. And when these glasses were given, it was found that 60% of these patients were not wearing these glasses because they are very thick. It's impossible to wear that and walk smoothly. So 60% was found without glasses. Thereby, even after surgery, 60% were functionally blind. On top of that, 6% cause of the blindness was because the surgery was not done properly. There was no precision to the surgery at that time. And the prevalence of blindness was almost 1 out of 100 people were blind. 1 out of 100 people were blind. You can imagine that. It's a very high rate of blindness. So I thought my purpose in life should be to carry out sufficient in terms of numbers, successful in terms of quality, and sustainable in terms of finance and logistics. How we can combine all these three things in one and provide modern cataract surgery to the community. And this was my purpose and goal. And at that time, some of the barriers that I found, I'm talking about before 1990. There are a lot of young people here, probably you are not born, some of you are not even born at that time. And the barriers that we faced was cost of high quality intraocular lenses, which were part and partial, and it is part and partial of the treatment of modern cataract surgery. And the cost at that time was almost more than $100 per case per IOL. And adaptation to find a simple surgical technique which could be adapted without compromising on the quality to a situation like ours, and cost and complexity of equipment and consumables. So we thought it really needs to be addressed with a very clear research and innovation. And we struggled for almost 8 years to bring down the cost of these intraocular lenses. And when we thought and envisaged about manufacturing these lenses in Nepal, everybody thought that we were out of mind. Everybody thought that it was impossible to manufacture at that time in a country like Nepal. Anyway, we struggled for about 9 years and brought down the cost of these intraocular lenses to less than $4 now. So that's a big leap without compromising on the quality. So now the type of surgery has reached to the community where it really needs. So that financial burden is no more a big issue. And we maintain the quality until now. Your Highness, we have distributed about 6.5 million lenses to 40 countries to people who really need, who cannot pay. Marginalized community. We take a lot of pride in saying this, maintaining the quality and doing this. And now in the surgical part, very early, we started with different types of microscopes because these microscopes were very, very expensive at that time. And sometimes taking our equipments on the back of the mules and the horses in different places. You can see how patients are trying to come to surgery with the thick glasses. Almost prehistoric for you now. And this is how the patients were examined. And the cases were very complex, very advanced, very mature cataracts, totally blinding. So we started doing small pilot studies and such setup, whether we can still do the modern cataract surgery. And there were lots of objections from our colleagues from international community, whether we could actually do it. So we were able to adapt and fine-tune the surgical technique after 5 years, and it really became later on very popular. Standard operating procedures where manuals were done, and 2 organizations, the Fred Hollows Foundation and the Himalayan Cataract Project, these are the 2 platforms that we took it globally for training purposes. And we started doing the surgery in 1994 ambulatory, which means what it is now. Do the surgery and send the patients home. But in mid-90s, it was not thinkable. So we processed and we started doing that even in a country like Nepal. Cost recovery was very important for our part of the world because many places still the insurance system doesn't work. So we have to innovate our own ways of cost recovery. So we did a subsidized through cross-subsidy. We get people who can pay full and subsidize to people who are a little poor, and then make it free for people who cannot pay, but maintaining the quality. And this surgical technique was at that time questioned a lot at the international community. So we had to do a randomized clinical trial. And we did a randomized clinical trial in Nepal, inviting Dr. David Chang. David Chang is one of the foremost well-known cataract surgeons from California, and very well-known in his own technique of phacoemulsification. So he did half of the cases, and I did half of the cases, my technique. And we followed it up for 1 month, 6 months, and 1 year. And we found the results were comparable. And these were published. And after this was published, there was a lot of positivity to the technique that we were doing, and it actually helped in many parts of the world. So if you look at cataract surgery now, it's fairly straightforward, predictable results, quality assured, but in the community, it's still a challenge. So we went on with a small incision cataract surgery by modifying the conventional technique and it was simple, low cost, with extremely good outcomes. And if you look at the cataract surgical program, lots of microsurgical training, intensive training for people from our country, from many other countries around the world came for the surgery. And we started sharing our concept of cost recovery, the concept of high volume and high quality ambulatory surgery, low cost and high quality intraocular lenses. And if you look at this chart, this is the whole cycle of cataract surgical delivery in the community in developing country. Yeah. And whenever you talk about a cycle, it's almost like a manufacturing cycle for something. So cataract surgery also has a cycle, starting from promotion and social marketing, diagnosis and screening, transportation and venue, investigation, anesthesia, surgery, surgical technique, post-op care, follow-up. The whole process is a cycle. And if you are doing in a large hospital, this doesn't matter. But when we are doing in a community in a developing country, this really matters. So the cost involved right from A to Z is important. At the community, it's again, our philosophy has been to maintain the quality. It's important to build very good team, screening and diagnosing patients, inventory and procurement, making sure that we take equipments and consumables with good track record and very good quality assured. And partnership is very important at the local level. And finally, governance, like anything, here also governance is very important. So we embarked aggressively in training this surgical technique as early as in 1990s to Vietnam. You can see those days we used to operate with bare hands, Your Highness. So it was in Hanoi that we were training the local doctors, giving them a transition from the French technique to our technique. The French were giving them very expensive technique, and we were slowly trying to teach them the low tech, but good quality. And we trained the first 20 doctors in our technique. Now they have become ambassadors and they have spread all over Vietnam. In China in 1994, similarly, especially in the western front of China, the northern part of Nepal, we've done extensive training. Bhutan, we still continue to go to Bhutan. Thailand, North Korea. Not many medical trips are done, goes to North Korea, but we go there because there's a need for the patient. And unfortunately, people get most severely affected in countries where there's a problem. So we've done a lot of teaching there. Indonesia is another country, many islands, very difficult to reach. Population is very big, and we have been quite successful in training and building up similar groups of doctors who can now go and do surgery in their own countries. And many of them have come to Nepal for training. Myanmar is another country that we have been very effective. And India, especially the northeastern part of India, that we have been visiting and serving for the last 15, 20 years now. Ethiopia is another country where we continuously go and work closely with our local doctors. Ghana is another important country that there is a lot of load, and the local doctors now are doing, and we are helping the local doctors to continuously clear the backlog of the country. And Mexico is another country that we are forging. Mexico, if you look at Mexico, there are countries like Mexico which may look a lot affluent, but because of the system, there's a large pocket of people who cannot get proper service. So that's another country that we have been. And we have set up a hospital in Nepal, Tilganga Institute of Ophthalmology, which is a WHO collaborating center, research and training. All the subspecialties are there, and we do conduct global activities from there. And we have nearly 40 doctors who are specialized in their own field. And you look at the number of surgeries that the hospital has done. Just the hospital only has done nearly 500,000, and then 14,000 corneal transplants, and trained very close to 750 ophthalmologists, many other categories, and very strong in research. And over the period since we started working, the cataract surgical rate, which is an expression of number of cataract surgeries per year per million, has almost 8-fold increased in the last, since 1995. And the quality of cataract surgery has become very good since 1994. And these are green graphs showing patients with intraocular lenses. Almost 100%, close to 100% receive it now. And the blindness, as Yusuf had said, we have been able to halve the blindness rate from almost 0.84 to 0.35. And this is something that I like to share with you. This is the corneal transplantation, the eye banking. And we have been quite successful in getting a lot of corneas locally, having something like this, a cornea excision center right at the crematorium. And the number of corneas, we started in 1994, just about 2. Now we harvest about 1,500 corneas. And that's more than enough for our countries, but we also serve it to many other countries. And the tissue charge is not taken, only the service charge is taken. So we supply very high quality corneas to a lot of our colleagues around the world. So Nepal at present is self-reliant on intraocular lenses and corneal tissues. That's how corneal transplantation is done on the right side. This is now, wait, I like to show you a video of a patient. And this actually depicts how blindness affects an individual, a society, a family, and how everything gets affected, and except the burden is increased. And you will see that this lady, when we spotted her, she was brought to the surgical site by her brother because she had been kicked out by her husband because she was very blind. So she was out of her house, she was living with her in-laws, and she had, in the last 6-7 months before that, she had given birth to a baby, which she has never seen. So can you play the video, please? I'm not going to say anything. Please watch the video. The surgery may be a bit difficult to watch, but please bear it. But this is a lady who's totally blind and in her late 30s. You can see the pupil is totally covered with the cataract. It's almost like you close your eyes, that's all she can see. bear this part. This is maybe a little bit difficult for you to watch. That's the white cataract. It's almost covering the whole vision, giving the total blindness. It's an unedited video. The cataract is totally removed, and that's not enough. You have to put in an intraocular lens for the patient to see later, to give an artificial lens. So that's an intraocular lens that's been put inside the eye, and these are custom made for the patient with specific powers that are measured for each patient. The surgery takes about 5 minutes. The next day, just watch the patient. It's just in 24 hours, the patient starts to see almost quite well. And we also found that the patient had I told you, had an infant baby. She was anemic because she was not taken care of, this lady, and the little child was very malnourished. See, look at that little child. And this is a lady who has kept the child in a womb for 9 months, and she's seeing the child for the first time. You can imagine how the perspective from that lady's 6 years later. 6 years later, we went to visit them again in their house, and we were not sure whether the young boy will live on or not with such high value of malnourishment. 6 years later, she was back in her husband's house, and this is just after the earthquake, Your Highness. Just after the earthquake, there are some temporary settlements, but she is back. She is fully working, and these are realities of life that many people face in many parts of the world. We found the 6-year-old boy who have started going to school and was very much alive, and she was in full charge of the house. She was looking after the house with dignity. Now, yeah. This is very important, and this is just to explain you what we are planning, what I think my next 5 or 10 years is going to be like. And it's again a long way ahead of us with a mountain of cataract blindness. And cataract is just a simple intervention can do such good things as you saw in that lady. And still, there are about 78 million people who need the surgery in the world. And most of them live in a country like low-income and middle-income countries. So it's very important, like I was briefing the Crown Prince, that we need to work together in the world so we can make the world a better place. We have got a foolproof surgical delivery system that is really a foolproof, which can be taken as a prototype in many countries where the Western system is not going to work. And even the Western people come and learn this from us and then take the system to these countries. So it's a foolproof surgical delivery system, not only technique, but the whole system. And I believe that it's easy to take this prototype, scaling up in many countries, and just a small resource can produce very high value, sustainable result. And the other thing that we are trying to look at is trying to revisit our intraocular lens manufacture so we can use it more for a social enterprise, so that whatever benefit we get it from there, we give it back to the community. So we have the intellectual know-hows of manufacturing. It's just a matter of pumping in a little resource so we can almost double-fold the number of volumes that we can produce. This is a old man. If you look at the right side, somebody will say that he's 80 years old. But just in 24 hours, it turned out that he's just a little less than 60 years old. You can see the difference you can make with such a small intervention. And I really would like you to ask me any questions you'll feel like. And thank you very much.
Have a seat, Doctor. Have a seat. All right, okay, this is on. Dr. Sanduk, that is quite inspiring. Truth be told, distinguished guests, the good doctor has challenged me to make my eye tear a little. It's an intended pun coming, of course, from an ophthalmology doctor.
Yeah.
But seeing how you can bring the light back to those eyes is quite. I mean, I could never bear. Coming from a newsroom, we always put a disclaimer whenever there is something like a graphic footage that please be aware this might be too difficult to watch. But did anybody here face any difficulty in watching that surgery being done firsthand? Raise a hand if you found it difficult.
Not many, some, yes.
We have a couple of poor wonderful ladies who found it a little bit difficult, but still, a picture is worth 1,000 words.
Yeah.
Before we open floor to the questions, and of course, with your permission, Your Highness, we're greedy a bit more, Doctor, to know more. First of all, we want to know about the boy from Nepal. What set you into this path? I mean, surely we understand the reality of Nepal back in that day. But as a child, you had many options. You could have said, I wanted to be a mechanical engineer. You could have said, I wanted to be a trader or a businessman. But you chose that path in particular. Why?
Yusuf, thanks. And the inspiration to become a doctor was the fact that my younger sister, who was very, very close to me during my college days, and she passed away very young, at the age of 15, when I was 17. That really, she passed away because of tuberculosis. And tuberculosis was a big thing those days, but now it's nothing. You can treat it very totally in comparison to what we have. And so before she passed away, she held my hands and said, brother, you have the potential to do something in your life. And after she passed away, I started thinking, what should I do? She said that, and then the encouragement that I got was that, if I could be a little benefit to people like my sister around Nepal, to become a doctor. And that's how I took my profession, to become a doctor, And that's how I became a doctor, and later on an eye doctor.
Going through a predicament and therefore taking an oath to dedicate your life to the lives of others.
Yes.
But during the line of this, doctor, ladies and gentlemen, we're only asking these questions because, make no mistake, we have some good time available at our disposal. But we want to get as much information we can from the man in front of us. We know what he is, but who he was will help us and will help you to draft the questions that perhaps could inspire you in every tomorrow that is to come. Doctor, I know where you come from, and I know the difficulties back in the community in Nepal were in those days. So when you saw that you were in front of a path where you could achieve what you can achieve now, was there no opportunity to derive from a humanitarian benefit into a business benefit? Was there not a time where you faced a difficulty and you were like, if I just did this to benefit myself a little bit, maybe I could do more for others? Tell me about that.
Yeah, I got your point, Yusuf. And in the year 1987, as a young ophthalmologist, I had spent, me and my wife, we were together in Australia, living with a very, very good friend of mine, Fred Hollows. And Fred Hollows was quite well known in Australia in his house, and spent a year. And after completion of my fellowship, I had lots of opportunities. I had opportunities from within Australia. It was 1987 as a qualified eye doctor. I had opportunities from many other places. But I think it was my wife, it was her thought that I should get back to Nepal and do something for my people. And I still cherish those persuasion from my wife. And I was 50-50, maybe I could jump there or jump here or get a lot of, and then earn a few years and come back. But we came back to Nepal, and it wasn't easy. It was a lot of hard work, and but that gave me a lot of perspective in my life. And now, going back from 2024, thinking about what happened in 1987, I think this was the best decision I've ever made in my life.
You wouldn't change anything if you go back to the past?
No, I wouldn't. I would. I would. I would tell a lot of people that I would probably be a very good doctor, revolving around a credit card. But now I'm in a place where I feel I'm very privileged, Your Highness, to be able to serve so many countries, so many people, and especially people who really need it. What is this life? Life is finite. Life ends somewhere, and at the end, I'm able to say that I've done so much. Thank you.
Well, I mean, they don't exaggerate when they say behind every great man, there is a greater woman. It is your wife, of course, that was that wall that brought you back, of course. Doctor, we have a lot of youth here. And there is a generalized thought, well, not in society, but amongst people, that doing good doesn't get you so far. Sometimes you got to go for your own personal gain. Now, when I've seen those slides, Doctor, we have all seen those slides. I've seen how many barriers, international barriers, that you've broken. North Korea is a story of its own. The fact that you even went there, which makes us remember that when the mutuality between you and the other is a crisis, all differences are rest aside. So if we take that into consideration, and this wrong generalized thought that doing good doesn't get you so far, what's a message to the youth over here in creating a positive impact in society?
Well, thanks for asking me this question. And I see a lot of young people, on the back, and they're going to be the future of tomorrow,
Inshallah.
And what I have believed in life is is you need to have a very clear purpose in your life. And many people call the purpose as a vision also, but I always like to say purpose with clarity. And if you have a clarity with a purpose, it's very important that you, with a very strong willpower, you really have to focus and engage to your purpose. There's going to be ups and downs. And then you have to continuously love what you're doing. It's very important that you have to love, or some people call it passion for your job. If you love your job, the job is going to like you and you're going to like your job. So purpose with passion for your job. And then always try to think once in a while, is there something else I can do outside this box? Thinking out of the box. And I've always benefited from thinking out of the box and try to say, there must be another way we can do this, you know. And that's, so in the beginning, when the surgical technique that I was trying to be part of, you know, I started sleeping with it, dreaming with it, eating with it. It's the kind of focus and attachment I had with it. So it's very important for you to, in your own job, to have such kind of thing. And very important is what I now believe is integrity. Integrity in your life, my dears, is going to be friends helpful to you for a long, long time. So it's very important that you maintain the integrity. Constant, sustainable integrity. But these are some of the things that I have learned in the process of where I am from very early on in my career. So please focus on these, and I'm sure some of these is going to be useful for your future.
One final question before I move on to the audience, because all of these questions are improvised at the moment.
Yeah.
Was there a moment or moments when you wanted to stop? Did you or did you not, and why?
Yeah. There were more than a dozen times, of course, more than 30 times that I felt very sad, but more than a dozen times that I felt like I should give up and go back to where you know, I thought was a better place. And but what really clicked me is the result of the purpose of my life is going to benefit large group of public, and I shouldn't leave that opportunity that I have got to serve such a large group of, you know, public with the work that I'm doing and the result of my work. So that light came on hitting me whenever I was depressed, I was falling down, and always lifted me up. The patience, and later on, the stories like this lady that you saw, and they are, you know, I call them every time, they energized, recharged my battery. And I mean, like I said, I am probably very uniquely privileged and fortunate in life to have a career like this.
Of course, I totally agree. And I think it's a great answer what you just gave, that the result is too good than to let go now. Thank you for that, Doctor. Can we give a round of applause for the great doctor?
Yeah. Thank you.
To our distinguished guests, we now open the floor to ask some questions. Now, here's the request. If you want to ask a question, raise your hand, identify yourself, who are you, and if you represent a certain organization or an entity, and you may ask the question either in Arabic or in English. If it's in Arabic, of course, with Your Highness's permission, and with our translator, I'll be more than happy to translate it to the good doctor, and vice versa, should be needed. So, if there are any questions, please raise your hand. I've seen that hand first, right at the back. Before you, sir. Can we have a mic for the man in the back?
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
الدكتور عبيد إبراهيم الكعبي. نشكر الدكتور على المعلومات اللي نقلها لنا. دكتور، بما أنك عندك الممارسات العديدة والتفكير الكثير من الأعمال الإنسانية، شو النصيحة والتوجيهات اللي ممكن ننقلها لفئة الدكتور عندنا وفئة أصحاب المهن وكذلك الشباب في الأعمال الإنسانية. شكرا.
So Dr. Abaid greets you and thank you very much for a very inspiring story.
Dr. Abaid.
Yes, Dr. Abaid. And his question is, now, since you're in the practice for quite a long time, what advice would you like to give to the doctors in the industry here, of course, in addition to those rising up in that field and those who are practicing in the humanitarian field? Do you have any tips and advices for them?
Yeah, Dr. Abaid, I'm aware that the modern world is a lot challenging. And there are a lot of corporate structures, multinational companies that we need to work very closely. And their philosophy in life is in total little different from where we want to go. So it's the difference, you know. But I think being a doctor, whoever it is, if you develop an attitude of what it looks like by sometimes sitting on the chair on the other side, that teaches you a lot of things. If you sit on the patient side and understand, I would say that it's very important for me not to tell you what to do and what not to do. There are a lot of difficulties and challenges, but at least what we can do is putting yourself on the patient's chair and understanding the perspective from a patient's. Holding a hand, talking very nicely matters a lot. That you can say, you know, definitely I think it makes a lot of difference to patients. But I do believe from the way I have come up in life, you are not going to take everything with you. And so do things that are necessary for you in terms of financial, logistic, you know, collections that you need. But besides that, you have to devote yourself for patient's care, welfare, and that is going to count a lot more than what you have physically accumulated. So I think physicians are in a more challenging situation, but still there is a lot of opportunities you can do, be a service to humanity.
That is, of course, from the medicine perspective and from the humanitarian
perspective. Yeah.
I hope that answered the question, Dr. عبيد. أتمنى يكون ذلك قد أجاب على السؤال. We have another question for the gentleman at the corner right there. Can we hand him a mic?
السلام عليكم. جلال الحرباوي، مدير إذاعة الفجيرة. أولا نرحب بالدكتور في هذا المجلس المبروك. سؤالي، عادة ما نرى الأعمال الخيرية مثل العمليات اللي يقوم بها الدكتور وبعض المنظمات الأخرى العالمية اللي تشارك في هذه العمليات تقام بالتعاون مع بعض المنظمات فقط لإجراء العمليات. هل ممكن هذه التجربة اللي قام فيها الدكتور أن نشوفها بطريقة أخرى، مثل ما تفضل الدكتور، تخفيض المعدات الطبية من عدسات طبية، تخفيض السعر، بأن يكون هناك تعاون مع بعض المنظمات الدولية مثل مؤسسة نور دبي اللي أطلقت بدولة الإمارات لمكافحة العمى وعلاج أمراض البصر، لإنشاء بعض المؤسسات في مختلف الدول النامية اللي تحتاج مثل هذه الأمور لإنشاء أو لعمل مصانع لإنشاء المواد العدسات أو المعدات بأسعار مناسبة جدا تخدم هذا العمل الخيري.
الاسم مرة أخرى ذكرني. الأستاذ
جلال الحرباوي.
أهلا وسهلا، شكرا جزيلا. Mr. Jalal al-Harbawi is from the Fujera radio. He greets you and gives you an equivalent, if not more, thanks, of course, to the story you shared with us. And he had an interesting question, Doctor. Initiatives such as yourself, the journey that you have led in your medical career, now, he's wondering if it can be not only exported, but even more modified, not on an individual base, but with humanitarian foundations that can collaborate together. For instance, of course, one of them, there is a foundation over here, which is the Noor Dubai Foundation. One of the things that the Noor Dubai Foundation combats is blindness. Now, we're not talking on a local level, but international. So his real question is there a way for all of these humanitarian expeditions to collaborate so much that certain factories could be founded and established that can design, let's say, one of the challenges you faced were those little artificial lenses. So a lot of these medical equipments, etc. Is there a way to collaborate to not only initiate these surgeries, but go a further step beyond in manufacturing these sophisticated medical supplies, and even in the post-care phase as well?
Thank you very much for asking such a wonderful question. And that is mostly in part that I'm here. Thank you very much, Your Highness, for having me here. And, like I said, it's the era of working together. And I see a lot of opportunities. Now, Middle East and UAE is really center focus. And there is so much we can do together with UAE and with the initiative of our Crown Prince, lovable Crown Prince. And, like you said, of the intraocular lens manufacture, making it, I point out, it's going to be a social enterprise. And it can be modernized, it can be a profit making. The profits could be given to the community. And then, like I said, the surgical technique has been now fine-tuned. It's just a matter of little resources for us to take it to hundreds, thousands, and millions of people where it really needs. And, I mean, this is perfectly the type of thing that we can do. We have in Nepal, we don't have the resources, but we have the system that we have worked so hard for almost 4 decades that put it together. And it's ready, and we can all do it together for the welfare. It's all what's called 2 + 2 makes 5.
So in other words, you have the technology, you
Yeah.
have the knowledge of how to solve it.
Yeah.
All that needs to be done
Yeah.
is another hand to be raised.
Yes.
Absolutely.
We can work together. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that, Doctor. And thanks to Mr. Jella for a wonderful question. We've been taking a good share of questions from 3 o'clock from our perspective here. Do we have any extra? Oh, they're good. We have more. Absolutely. To the good gentleman, please. تفضل. أكيد بالعربي وخلنا نجيب لك ميكروفون الحين بيوصلك إن شاء الله. Get a microphone to the gentleman, or I could have the microphone if it's okay. Oh, it's already there. كبسة فوق يشتغل إن شاء الله. ميكروفون ثاني أبشر.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. شكرا مقام سيدي سمو الشيخ محمد الشرقي ولي عهد الفجيرة حفظكم الله على هذه المجالس المتميزة التي تثري المجتمع في كل المجالات. والشكر موصول لسعادة الدكتور وجودك هنا في الفجيرة. سؤالي للحقيقة، هل هناك علاقة وراثية في قصر وطول النظر ويكثروا حاليا في بعد السوشيال ميديا وبعد ما صارت الناس كلها على التليفون والايباد والكمبيوتر؟ ولكن سؤالي الرئيسي، الدكتور عرج على قرنية العين، لكن كنا نتمنى انه بعد يعطي مجال لشبكية العين. هل هناك علاجات لشبكية العين؟ هل توصل العلم الحديث في العيون الى مجال معين في شبكية العين؟ وهل الدكتور سبق لي أن أجرى عمليات وماذا ينصح المرضى؟ شكرا.
العفو. All right, now with this I'm gonna need just help with 2 words. If anybody can be a Google translator for me. ذكروني ماذا كانت القرنية والشبكية باللغة الإنجليزية. القرنية إذا حد يسمع. the cornea والشبكية هي crater. ريتنا. Yes, the retina. شكرا جزيلا. تحية طيبة لمترجمنا الطيب. وأيضا لسموه على هذه المساعدة. شكرا. So you've heard those 2 particular medical aspects that are part of our eye's anatomy. Our good gentleman question, first of all, he gave thanks to His Highness for such wonderful sessions. In addition to that, thanks to you, of course, for showing up here today. He had 2 questions. The first one, which is an optional one, short and long sight. does it have any genetic correlation? Because it seems to be increasing nowadays, specifically because of the development of social media. Everyone has to stare on a light source nowadays. The other thing, now, we've seen, of course, your medical journey and your surgical technique in one particular aspect of the eye's anatomy. But when it comes to the retina, when it comes to different aspects of the human eye, have you ever expanded to that? Are you able to represent or present any new surgical techniques that could develop the current medicine?
Okay, to the first question that what was the first question that
the first question, short sight and long sight, are they genetically related?
The short-sighted is when you see only close, you don't see for distance. So you wear minus glasses for distance. That's short-sighted, and which is also called myopia, short-sighted. And myopia is definitely genetically linked. And you see a lot of short-sighted people in Oriental countries, in China and East Asia. And there are a lot of goes in the family. But these can be treated with laser surgeries after they attain physical growth 2021. Okay? The long-sighted is for people who, like me, who after 50 needs to have reading glasses. And the laser surgery has been on the progress, but not so well perfected for short-sighted, for long-sighted. Long-sighted is part of our process of getting to the A's. So there is no genetic thing. Everybody has to go through that. And the question two is work in retina. Retina is quite complex. In our hospital, we have a very good setup of retina. And retina gets involved in conditions with diabetes, which is becoming an epidemic in our country. You know, diabetes causing problems in retina, blood pressure causing problems in retina, and age-related macular degeneration. For retinal diseases, still it is, for diabetic retinal disease, the best thing is to early detect it and laser it or give injections and prevent it and control the diabetes. But once it gets full-fledged and blind, it's very difficult to treat anywhere. So retinal diseases still, if they are very severe, very difficult to treat.
But not impossible.
Not impossible, of course, yeah.
Thank you for that, Doctor.
Yeah.
I think I've seen a couple of hands, a couple of extra hands. I'll get back to you, sir, I promise. We have a lot of time in our basket. I'll go to the gentleman, to the lady, and then to you, sir. Good sir, please. To the front line, yes.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. شكرا سموك، شكرا الحضور الكريم، شكرا للدكتور. في عمليات قصر النظر كانت ليزر، بعدين ليزك، بعدين اي بي ليزر. في تقنيه اكثر من الاي بي ليزر للعلاج. بعدين are there any trouble in the future it will be happen for the eyes، يعني ممكن تصير مشاكل مستقبليه للعين، or they will be stuck، يعني النظر يتوقف ما يرجع مره ثانيه مثل ما كان.
قصدك على مشاكل مستقبليه، هل يمكن يعني كأعراض جانبيه قصدك؟
لا شوف، هو السؤال من شقين. الشق الاول، هل في تقنيه بعد الاي بي ليزر؟ هذا واحد. اثنين، بعد اجراء العمليه ممكن يرجع النظر مثل ما كان، يعني ينقص او يتم ثابت، وفي مشاكل عن هالتقنيه بالنسبه للعمليات للعين. شكرا.
اهلا وسهلا. So you have a special greeting, of course, likewise to His Highness and to you, good doctor. And what he's asking about, another question about short sight. The lifespan of combating short sight was with certain surgeries, laser surgery, LASIK, and then there is the AB laser. So his question, he has two parts of this question. Number one, could a person's sight who's suffering from short sight returns to its original state because of these surgeries? And another thing, looking beyond the head, are we gonna see any problems that could result in the absolute disappearance of a person's sight because of such conditions?
Okay. Now, laser surgery for short-sighted people, it has sufficiently been developed and still developing to precision. Right now, laser surgery, if done after your physical growth has attained, it's very important. The number growing till 2021, nobody can stop it. That is a physical growth, natural process. As with your height, your eyes also grow. So you have to wait till that growth stops. And if you do the laser surgery after a big number of tests, which will signify whether your eyes are good for laser surgery or not. If that test is done, a test says, yes, you should go ahead. And laser surgery right now is about 96 to 97% predictable. And it is, once it is done, there are cases that are living with 30 years laser surgery. And laser surgery is also sometimes called LASIK. The more later version of LASIK is SMILE. And it's continuously, getting better. So I would say that if it is a proper case, it is very safe, results are very good. And to my knowledge, long-term results are good.
And in the future, you don't see a development of such cases that could result in the disappearance of sight.
I have seen some cases which have been done, quite a lot of cases which have been done 30 years ago and still doing very well. And that's about the time that laser has been perfected. So, we still, but I think it should be good. So, yeah.
راضي على الإجابة? Any other techniques that we could see other than the AB laser coming, of course, to the medical sector?
I think the latest one is called SMILE, which is a much less, it's a version of laser, but much less intervention. The first one was PRK, that you have to stay with painful ideas for a few days. And with LASIK, it's much less painful. With a SMILE, very less. So I think the intervention is getting much shorter, much softer for the patient.
Becoming very optimal.
And the outcome is better.
Thank you for that, Doctor.
Yeah.
I have another question coming from row number 2. Yes, إلى الأخت الفاضلة.
السلام عليكم، معكم معزز عابي. سؤالي لك دكتور، شاهدنا العديد من الأعمال الخيرية والإنجازات الطبية، وأنك جريت عمليات جراحية لجميع بعض من المرضى في بعض من دول العالم. كيف تصف لنا شعورك أنك عملت هالعمليات وعدت أبصار هذيل المرضى ومن غير مقابل؟ شكرا.
شكرا جزيلا. So the good Miss Moza greets you well, thanking you for the story that you've shared, and she wants you to dig into the feelings in the past when you have returned the sight to many of these patients. How did you feel returning it, especially that you've done this for absolutely no return, for no cost?
Every patient returns to you with a different, different tickle that, it's called goosebumps or, whatever you call it. It makes you feel, every time makes you feel very important and as if you have changed the world, And, for example, there was this lady who said, after the sight has been restored, I feel like I have just come out of the womb. There are so many other expressions. Every case so beautiful. And this is what, what Dr. Aved was asking, what keeps me going? It recharges you every time. And just, sometimes it's very, very difficult to make you understand, but it's a beautiful feeling.
Completely understand where that comes from. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to relate even more, you don't need me to say that to you, but sure, many of us have come across people on the road who ask you, where do I get to this place? Where do I get to that place? And you guide them. Or someone who needs any technical troubleshooting assistance.
Yusuf, and I'll also, in northeastern part of India, that about 7 years ago, we operated on a lady, Your Excellency, And she was found, when she was brought, she was like a mad, and everybody thought she's mad, and she had no other people, and all the dresses were, very dirty, and she had the hairs were not done, and she looked like almost a wild kind of character. So we did our surgery and finished, and after 2 years, we went to do another surgical setup there. And then our local people said, "Doctor, I want to take you to one place." And so the lady took me to a place little above the town, and there was a small shop. There was a lady who was running that shop, and she had a small roadside grocery shop, and she was looking like a nice lady. "Do you remember her?" I said, "No, I don't remember her. This is the lady we picked up from the road, and now she's back seeing, and she's back and earning for her family and living like a decent lady."
Inshallah.
So such is the impact of restoring sight, really. There are thousands of patients' stories like this.
And when you do that, when you reflect upon yourself and it keeps you going, that is the important thing.
Yeah, it's very important. Like I said, from my heart, I said that I'm very privileged and I'm very lucky to have a very special occupation like I have. I don't think anybody can take my place.
You'll never know, but so far you have big shoes to fill. Yes, you have big shoes to fill, Doctor.
Yeah.
I will get to the right side, but let me be fair and square with the middle side of the back to the gentleman.
بروفيسور محمد فياض عميد كلية الاتصال. بداية شكرا جزيلا لهذه الدعوة الكريمة في هذه الليلة المباركة الرمضانية. سؤالي للدكتور سؤال إعلامي احترافي إنساني. كيف تقيم أو تعرف ذاتك قبل وبعد هذا العمل الإنساني التطوعي الراقي الطبي الذي قمت به على مدار السنوات الماضية؟ شكرا جزيلا.
From Professor Muhammad, he gave a very deep, existential question. This journey of yours, Dr. Sadek, how do you evaluate yourself after what you have given and before you even began to give?
It's something that I have, in brief, to say is every 5-6 years I have understood the value of my journey, and after every decade I have extremely well understood the value that it causes in terms of public welfare. It can give, the impact can give public welfare, and I've been able to think initially about the surgical system and around the patient. Now I'm in a position where I can think about making this as a sustainable way that can give benefit to the whole society. And in fact, having a very good cataract surgical training program and a process is a nucleus of a good eye care. So you are actually looking at implanting very good eye care everywhere. So over the period of time, I have started getting the goodness of what I have been doing with my team, of course, and so it's a part of what is called summation after every decade. I don't know, that's probably the best way I can.
You're doing very good explaining it.
Yeah.
Still, would you say that your self-evaluation, did it rely entirely on the growing number of people that you've changed their lives and suddenly they're behind your back pushing you more to do more and pushing you forward?
Yes, but after some time, it is it is an encouragement and a feeling that I get by being able to sit in an audience like this, and His Highness making it possible for a person like me to stand in front of you and talk to you. I don't know whether I'm passing you the correct message.
You are passing. I've been doing this, of course, also for a while. The
Yes.
fear never disappears. Now, let
Yes.
me ask you, what is more difficult? Because you're catching your breath, doctor.
Yeah.
Do you breathe frantically during a surgery more than on the stage, or what?
I'm more comfortable in my surgical chair than sitting here. Yeah.
Completely understandable.
Yeah.
Now, let's be fair and square with the gentleman on the first row. If we can give him a mic, please.
Yeah.
First row, second gentleman. There we go.
مشكور طويل العمر على هذا المجلس العامر. Since you mentioned you always thought of many things outside the box.
Yes.
Many of those people who you operated on, basically they were blind all their life.
Yes.
And I could see that a good percentage are from the young generation. Did you think of initiatives that has to do with educating them at least after the operation?
Yeah.
Thank you.
We have, in fact, that's a very important part of our surgical delivery system. I showed you a PowerPoint of an integrated steps, and at the steps, at the end, there's a surgical care and aftercare. And during that process, people are given eye health education, how to look after. Because every patient is accompanied by 2 or 3 of the relatives, and they get that message and take it back, how to look after your eyes and take care of it and how you can come in the future. Yes.
No, what I meant is that since they were blind all their life,
Yes.
so they don't have a life basically, and now
Yes.
they have life because
Yes.
they can see,
Yes.
but they were uneducated.
Yes.
So did you think of any initiatives to actually collaborate with
I understand your point, and for young people we have very often integrated with educational systems, so that person could undertake, depending on the age, continue to go to school or vocational educations, and it's now I can even help them to get some support from organizations, so that they can continue to be a better social leaders in their. Is that what you wanted to ask? Yes. Yes.
Do we have any other questions? Oh, we have plenty.
Yeah.
Can I take from the lady in the back first? Yeah. Please hand her over a mic.
From Fajira Culture and Media Authority. With no doubt, Doctor, you've built a legacy for yourself for the work that you've done in the past 3 decades. My question is, what's your strategic plan to make sure this legacy goes on in the future? Thank you.
Nice question.
Very, very nice.
I was wondering to ask you the same thing of how to pass this knowledge on.
Yeah. We have a wonderful succession plan, and I was just briefing His Royal Highness that we have a group of 40 well-trained doctors now. And in fact, in many of these places, I go in the beginning, and then they are followed by my, colleagues. And they are just, some of the younger ones are even better than me. And they go around training doctors and even paramedics. There are paramedics and managers who needs to be a very important part of the surgical delivery system. So that part is, is very important, and we're continuing with that.
Amazing. Thank you for that, Doctor.
Yeah.
What was that, gentleman? There he is.
السلام عليكم. أخوكم جابر الزيودي. طبعا في البداية شكر لسمو الشيخ محمد بن حمد الشرقي على هذه المجالس بأمانة اللي دائما وابدا تثرينا بهاي المواضيع المميزة، وشكرا للدكتور كذلك بتواجده اليوم معنا. سؤالي للدكتور بأمانة، أنت بالنسبة للمرضى سواء اللي كانوا واللي سمعوا كذلك قصص النجاح هذه المميزة طول السنوات الكثيرة هذه، أنت بالنسبة لهم تعتبر قصة نجاح، وأنت بالنسبة لهم كذلك تعتبر أيقونة أو كذلك قدوة. ولكن السؤال هو عكسي حاليا، من هو قدوة الدكتور اللي بناء عليه اصبح الدكتور اللي يعني والقصه الكبيره هاي الجميله الانسانيه اللي شفناها. شكرا جزيلا.
Well, thanks to Mr. Jabber. He greets you, of course. Have you ever watched the movie Inception? He has an Inception kind of a question. So, a lot of people like us have heard these inspirational stories and the journey you've had thus far, and therefore you've become a role model, specifically even to some of the doctors you've mentored and paramedics. But the question is, who was your mentor, Dr. Sandok? Who was your icon and your success story when you wanted to become what you became?
My mentor was an Australian professor called Fred Hollows. And Fred Hollows and I worked very closely as friend. And in his biography, he calls me as a soulmate. So we have worked together from the time I spent with him in Australia for 1 year. And he used to work with the Australian Outback's Aboriginal community, looking at trachoma. Trachoma is a disease which was, which was there some years ago, even in Middle East and Egypt and Australian Outbacks. And but we worked together and tried to focus on cataract. And he was, what I liked about him was he was extremely outspoken. And being from a developed country, he thought that the hand fingers are different sizes. It shouldn't be different sizes. People from all countries should be able to get quality health. And that was what he believed, and I really followed up that. And he died in 1992 before I could really present him what we have done. So he was one of my role models.
And the torch is held by you.
Yeah, and in his name, we have established a foundation called Fred Hollows Foundation, which is a Australia-based, and which works in many countries now. Yeah.
Doctor, it's called Fred Hollows?
Fred Hollows Foundation.
Fred Hollows Foundation. Wonderful. Do we have any other questions for Dr. Sandok? All right, let's take this one. Yeah, we still have room for a couple of more. Please go ahead.
First of all, good evening. Thank you for having us. And I would like to thank Mr. Sandok for his inspirational story and journey, which has indeed changed people's life and has given them the chance to see the world that we are seeing. My question is, what is a one key advice that you would give to anyone you have met? Thank you.
What is that?
What is one key advice you would give to anyone you've ever met? Let's say if you've put all of your experience in a juice and you would serve it to someone, what would that be?
I would without blinking say life with integrity. I said integrity remains to be sustainable for your life, and it'll very often give you back many times when you are very bad. Integrity is really, really something that I have believed should be part of it. Trust, integrity.
Integrity, lihi nazaha.
Yeah.
How wasn't it difficult sometimes to maintain integrity when you had to give your patients something they didn't want to hear?
Very difficult. Very difficult, but I don't think there is really a shortcut for it. And but if you follow that, if you follow that path, it really will help you for your entire life.
For that. And let me go for the gentleman right here. I have my eyes on you. عليك السلام ورحمة الله.
شكرا سمو الشيخ محمد على هذا المجلس، والشكر موصول للجنة المنظمة. سؤالي للدكتور ساندوك، منذ أيام أعلنت الشركة التكنولوجية العصبية والمملوكة لإيلون ماسك بابتكار شريحة دماغية تمكن فاقدي البصر من النظر مجددا. من واقع خبرتك دكتور، كيف ترى مستقبل العيون باستخدام التقنيات التكنولوجية؟ وشكرا.
That's a nice question that I'd like to hear your answer from. Of course, the good gentleman greets you, gives you his thanks, and he wants to elaborate on the recent announcement by Elon Musk's company that designed a microchip that can be instilled in a patient, and apparently it can return a patient's vision. So, how effective, or how do you advise the incorporation of technology into our own biometrics as a medical medium in the future?
Yeah. Called Neuralink, and you know, Neuralink was one of the first to put in very precise microchips in the brain, especially the cerebral part. And there's a thing called brain-computer interface, and these this have been successfully implanted in one person right now, Nolan. His name is Nolan, and he sustained an injury after deep sea diving, and he had been paralyzed from his shoulder downwards, quadriplegic we call it. And I think they did a implant by microchips about 2 months ago. And he was recently seen playing with his mind, chess games on the computer, I think. And that really created a big sensation. And that's a great start, but it is sensory. It is from the brain into the motor functions, and eye is sensory, you see. So motor functions, there is some hope, and there's going to be a lot of obstacles. Still, there's a lot of obstacles for it to be refined, but it's a great, I personally feel it's a great start. But they're also doing some work to address the blindness, and they have done a bit on animal studies. Animal studies were done at the University of California, and there's a lot of controversy about the animal studies, about what happened to the animals, and whether the monkeys died or, and a lot of monkeys suffered. This is, I'm talking, but there is some hope that microchips implanted in people who have lost their nerve by road accidents can have some hopes in the future, but hasn't been proved. Like, some proof with a motor function, okay? And my belief is still going to be difficult for people who have never learned to see. For people who have learned to see and then later on become blind, for them, maybe this may have some hopes. But technology is really wonderful. Who could understand what the smartphone can give you right now if you have lived like myself from the life of the table phones? So technology is really, but until now, I think there is some correlation with the motor function, but there is some work being done on the animal studies on visual function, and I'm hopeful that something will come up. Is that all right?
Yeah. Doctor, but there is one side to that question. Excuse me. If we can talk about the risks, I mean, now if your computer breaks down, you speak to IT support. I mean, if you have a chip in your head, somebody could hack you, literally hack you. Are we going to look at human support in the future?
Yeah, of course. I think there are problems with the AIs. These are problems that you're going to face with, and I'm sure if there are problems later on, they will also, like we create antiviruses. I'm sure they will come up with things which can take care of those.
I can't imagine to install a Kaspersky in my brain. And all right, let's go with the question from the lady in the back, please.
السلام عليكم. أنا شيخة المسماري، متطوعة. كلمتي أبى أكلمها للدكتور أنه هو أصلاً بما أنه هو موجود اليوم هني، أكيد صار لنا شخصية ملهمة لنا إحنا كمتطوعين. أبى أسأله التحديات اللي هو واجهها خلال مسيرته في التطوعي. إحنا متطوعين دائما نحصل هذه التحديات والعقبات أمامنا، بس أكيد يعني إحنا نستقطب المتطوعين الصغار اللي توهم بادين في المجال التطوعي على أساس أنهم يتطوعون معانا، بس بعد نشوف منهم أحيانا التأفف، أحيانا التذمر من المجال التطوعي لأنه يكون بدون مقابل. فهو كيف قدر أنه يكمل مسيرته بوجود هذه العقبات والتحديات، وقدر ما شاء الله عليه أنه يوصل ويستوي دكتور. يعني هو تطوعه تخصصي، أما إحنا مجالنا إنساني أو مجتمعي، وأكيد إحنا نقطة في بحر مثل ما يقولون. يعني هو ما شاء الله عليه يعني لا يعلى عليه. الحين احنا ما نقدر نحط نفسنا في مكانه، بس بعد اكيد احنا لنا الاجر وهو للاجر بعد. يعني من كل عمل تطوعي نقوم فيه اكيد احنا نرجع فرحانين. انا يعني شفت هاي الفرحه فيه لما هو قال عن اللي كانت مريضة وسووا لها العملية حق العيون، لما أكيد فتحت عينها وشافت الدنيا أكيد كانت فرحانة. فهو شاف هذه الفرحة بعد، وهو بعد فرح لأنه سوى شيء خيري. فإحنا حتى من الأشياء البسيطة اللي قاعدين نسويها اليومية أكيد إحنا فرحانين ونرد مستانسين إحنا سوينا هذا الشيء. فأنا أباه هو ينصح. يعني أكيد الحين في المجلس في كثير من المتطوعين وفي كثير من اللي يقولون إحنا ما نبى نتطوع إنه لأنه بدون مقابل، فاهم علي؟ أو إنه أحيانا تجيهم حالة ركود، أو إنه يتأففون حتى من الأشياء البسيطة. ممكن هم يقولون هاي ما تعتبر تطوع، أو إن إحنا شو مستفيدين من هذا التطوع اللي إحنا راح نروح فيه. مشكورين، وشكرا لمجلس الشيخ محمد بن حمد الشرقي. الصراحة يعني شخصية ملهمة. اليوم يوم قعدنا نستمع له، يعني إحنا قاعدين نشوف نفسنا إحنا ما قدمنا ولا شيء. أنا مسيرتي في العمل التطوعي تقريبا 16 سنة، فأنا قاعدة أشوف نفسي إني ولا شيء يعني من الأشياء اللي قدمتها قدامه اللي هو قدمها. يعني شكرا.
بداية التحية طيبة للأستاذة الشيخة ولكل من يعمل في قطاع التطوع.
Long list of questions, eh?
It's not a long list of questions. It's one question, but I fear I may have to give you a shorter length. But I need to convey the message from our heart. Ms. Sheikha represents a very important sector, a very important field, which is the field of volunteers. And amongst us today, we have some volunteers, Doctor. Now, there is a similarity, even though she holds a candle in your universe, I quote her, but there is a similarity in the art of giving without expecting anything in return. And you were giving medicine. Now, she's been giving 16 years in her life in this field. And of course, now, in some areas around the world, when do you volunteer? People say, sometimes the rich volunteer and say, it's time we give back to society. But here the culture of volunteering, specifically in the UAE, starts at a very early age. But when you go into that field, there is some difficulty at times that puts you in a state of slumber. I don't feel like going today. Or how long am I going to keep on doing this? There's nothing in return. Now, this is one field, but there's a similarity in your career. So you definitely face that difficulty. She wants an example of that difficulty, and she wants to know what kept you going that can keep her, and also as a lesson to the youth for them to keep going as well. Where could that take them?
Yeah, I'll try to answer from the way I thought,
Yes.
I can do it, and I have to do it because it is my profession. And it's more difficult for her because it's not really her profession.
You mean because a doctor has an oath?
Yes. I'm designed to go and work in patients anyway. And how I do is different, But I think, from what she needs to probably take care is voluntary is very good, and but the definition of voluntary is slowly changing. And voluntary as a perspective is very important, that it has to come from your heart. That's where you love what you're doing. But everything has to be on the long run sustainable way. A little bit of professionalism should be added to that. And making it voluntary for lifelong is not going to be practical, I think, for most cases. There are certain individuals who may probably be able to do, but I think voluntary is important for the real aspiration and the passion for the work. But then on the long run, the voluntarism has to be given some professionalism. You understand what I'm saying.
With crystal clear.
Yeah.
If you allow me, Doctor,
Yes.
I would like to relay
Please.
the answer in another way.
Please.
وبإذن سموك أود أن نعطي هذه الرسالة للأخت شيخة. أولا الحضور الكريم جميعا. ترجمة لهذه الرسالة، وأعتقد أنها القصة الأروع أو الدرس الأكبر من هذا الموضوع، ما أبقى الدكتور في مسيرته في العطاء خصوصا بلا مقابل. بداية كلنا يعلم أنه في المجال الطبي لكل طبيب عهد وميثاق يأخذه في مجاله الطبي في شفافيته وصدقه مع مرضاه. في العمل التطوعي الأمر مختلف، كما يقول الدكتور أن عمل التطوع اليوم أنت تتطوع لتوزيع وجبات غذائية، غدا تتطوع لتوزيع وجبات لإفطار صائم أو على الطرق. قد يختلف المجال، لذا ليس مجالا محددا بعينه، لكن التطوع قد نرى فيه قاسما مشتركا مع مسيرة الدكتور، ألا وهو الانضباط. انضباط في الروح. لكل منا ميثاق، لكل منا عهد يأخذه. هناك ميثاق على أن نتعلم، وهناك ميثاق يوما ما عندما نتزوج، ميثاق غليظ، وهناك ميثاق في العمل، وهناك ميثاق مع الوطن، وهناك ميثاق مع عمل الخير. فإن لم يستطع أحدنا أن يلتزم بميثاق معين لفترة زمنية معينة في التطوع، فكيف به أو بها يلتزمون في ميثاق أكبر في المستقبل؟ وأعتقد أن الموضوع هو أن ينظر المرء منا على التطوع وفي كل أمر في حياته، ليس في التطوع فقط، على أنه ميثاق للذات، بأن يكون لي مبدأ وأن أكون صادقا مع نفسي وصريحا ونزيها مع غيري. To have integrity with others, that's the commitment we should take لكي نصل إلى ما وصل إليه. بهذا بقيت حتى الآن تقريبا دقيقتين، فلكي نكون منصفين في هذه الكلمة الختامية، هل من سائل لكي نجيبه؟ فليرفع يدا أو فلترفع يدا. لا أحد. إذن بداية فلنعود إلى اللغة الإنجليزية. There are no questions. You've done a fantabulous doctor. Take a look at this as your own surgery room, and you've solved a lot of problems. So you're a wonderful. Can we have a round of applause for the great doctor? And of course,
I really like to thank His Royal Highness and his team for getting somebody like Mr. Yusuf. He is extremely good in what he is doing. I'm telling you, I've worked with few other people, but he's fantastic. Really, I'm telling you.
Thank you very much, Doctor. I'm only good as you allow me to be. You're one of the most exceptional guests and inspirational ones I've ever, of course, had a dialogue with. So thank you very much. We'd like to extend, of course, our thanks to His Highness Sheikh محمد الشرقي, the Crown Prince of Fujera, and for this wonderful session, for this wonderful gathering. And our thanks are extended to, of course, Dr. Sanduk Roit for honoring us today, for inspiring all of us here today. In the same way, you've contacted your patients to see how they're doing after you've returned light to their eyes. Hopefully, someone from amongst here will come back to you and tell you, one day I attended a session with you and look where my life got me. Thank you very much, Doctor.
Thank you.
And thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much.